Hey y'all, welcome to day one with my new tip Mustang. She was a 2-year-old filly out of Conger, Utah, and I decided to name her Hestia. So I just get straight to work with a bit of approach and retreat. I'm not using very much pressure at all. I'm not trying to send her around or anything. I'm really just looking for any amount of curiosity or attention she pays me, and I'm releasing basically just when she looks at me. So in these very first few moments that I spent in her pen, she's just trying to figure me out and figure out what I want from her. And that's really just to look at me right now. And soon it will be to stand still while I approach her and hold my hand out and eventually let her sniff it. But for now, I just want her to look at me and hold her feet still. I like to show the whole process, but I am just cutting out the moments where I'm just standing there and rewarding her for paying attention to me. I like to give a lot of release, especially in these first few sessions, so that I don't overwhelm them too much. And I don't want them to think that me being in their pen is going to lead to a lot of stress. And so I spent a long time just standing away from her, letting her look at me, and realized that whatever she just did was good. So right there, she faced up to me, and so I released. So I sometimes move with her a little bit, just trying to catch her attention and help her find the right answer, cutting off her drive line here and there as needed. I gave her a little break after that one, and when I re-entered her pen, she got a bit nervous and snorty, which is pretty typical for these Mustangs. Usually once you re-enter their pen, it takes a few minutes to get back to where they were the previous session. So one thing I did figure out a few days later is that she actually likes me to approach her with my hands by my side and then raise my hand as I get closer to her face. For some reason, she finds that less scary. Some Mustangs prefer the first way because they can get spooked by you raising your hand if you're too close to them. But Hestia seems to be the opposite, and she finds it less scary if I just walk up to her normally and then raise my hand. And here we got our first touch. I was really impressed. I had been in the pen with her for probably a total of 5 or 6 minutes. I gave her another break after that because that was really good. That was the first time I touched the bridge of her nose. So she would sometimes get to this point where she was kind of ducking and dodging and avoiding my hand, and it's like she was anticipating the touch being scary, even though she'd already touched my hand before. And I figured out a way to combat this later on, but on this day I hadn't quite figured out what would work really well for her. Sometimes when they're getting this overwhelmed, I'll just let them wander off and come back in a better headspace. I need them to know that that's an option. They need to understand that they can't always wander off if they get too scared, because if you try and corner them and make them feel trapped, they will run you over if they get scared enough, or they will attack or do something dangerous. And so they need to know that running away is an option. Now, I will use a bit of pressure here and there, and you'll see me kind of step in front of her drive line and just ask for her attention. I'm really asking very gently that she pays attention to me, and all I'm really wanting from her is to face up to me. So here, I'm kind of cutting her off. I'm kind of stepping in front of her drive line a bit. I'm just using a bit of pressure to slightly push her out of her comfort zone, but I'm careful not to use too much, and occasionally I do let her wander off so that she always knows in the back of her mind that's an option if she gets freaked out enough. Another thing they can try to do is jump or climb the panels if they get too scared, and so I don't want any of that happening. I want her to know that I'm only asking for her attention. I'm not demanding it from her. If I were to just go in her pen and just stand around, not use any kind of pressure or encourage her to pay attention to me, if I just stood there, maybe held out a handful of hay for her to eat, we might be spending months in this pen. I wouldn't be able to take her tag off. I wouldn't be able to take her out of this pen, do anything interesting with her. She would never get turned out with other horses. And months could go by before we made any kind of progress, and that would be a pretty sad life for her to live. So I am trying to find the right balance of pressure and release and approach and retreat to get her moving along quickly. I do like seeing a lick and chew here and there. Obviously, it is a sign that the horse was stressed, but it means that they're releasing that tension. Some horses are so nervous they'll never lick and chew while you're in their pen. They hold all that tension, and then they hold it in their jaw until you leave, and only then do they start licking and chewing. So it's a really good sign when they're willing to do it while you're in their pen. So it's generally not best to really have to lean forward to get those touches in, and that's something that I have a bad habit of doing, which I'm working on. And so generally it's best to just slowly, gradually walk closer to them so you don't have to lean and don't have to reach so far to get those first few touches, because it can really make them nervous when you have to lean towards them. And it's generally a pretty good sign that they're maybe not quite ready for that touch yet, as evidenced by her little spook here. Like I said, on a later date, I did figure out something that worked really well for her to get her over that fear of my hand. So when they just kind of look away and space out like this, it's generally a good sign that they're getting overwhelmed and it's time to end soon. And so I was just trying to get a little bit of attention from her here, just trying to bring her back to me a bit, and then I did release and end the session. but not before she spooked and ran away, which is another good sign that it's time to end soon, especially with these young horses. I really try not to spend a lot of time with these Mustangs, at least not without taking breaks in the middle, so I try and do 10 or 20 minute sessions with the new Mustangs. So when they do start to get a bit overwhelmed, I just look for something really small, so just her putting her attention back on me, and then I released and ended the session. Thank you for watching day 1 with Hestia. Stay tuned for more.